Hi guys, I'm Rochelle and I'm a Ravenclaw, and today I'll be doing part 2 of my June wrap-up. I read 14 things in the month of June. I'm going to be talking about the last 7 things that I read in the month of June today. If you've missed part 1, I will leave a link to part 1 in the description down below. So we are going to jump straight in. Also, I will warn you now, there will be some salt, there will be some shade at the end of this video, because I'm going to save a particular series for the end, so that if you don't want to see the shade and the salt, I would close this when I get to a series, and I will warn you about that later. The first thing that I want to talk to you about in this video is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I have this beautiful penguin cloth bound edition, like this. These books are just... So Villette is considered Charlotte Bronte's most autobiographical work. There's a lot of like time period changes without warning. You're just kind of like expected to go through this. My biggest issue with a lot of classics, and in particular with this, is this follows an English woman who moves for whatever reason to a town in France. So a lot of the speech later on in this is in French, and I don't understand French, and there's no footnotes or translations anywhere within this copy. So there was quite a few points in this book where I'm just like, I have no idea what's being said here. No idea what this conversation entails. I've got no idea what the main character has just learned and why it's a big deal, because I just don't understand French. Like, I just don't. I've got some basic, like, very, very basic, like, pop culture knowledge. Like, I've got a little bit, like, I know a little teeny bit, but not enough to understand a lot of what is said in this book. So I am curious about whether there is a reason that those conversations are left in French and you're just meant to like translate them somehow at some point. I became very frustrated at my lack of comprehension because a lot of stuff was said in French that I did not get. I did not understand it. It does have quite an abrupt end. For me personally, it was a satisfying end. Like, there was a lot of stuff that I wish we'd known more about and that we'd learned about, etc. But, you know, that's just not how life works. You don't get to tie all the threads up all the time in your life. So, yeah, I did enjoy the ending. I have no idea whether it would be classified as an open ending, and I'm not against open endings. I just wish that there is a fate of a particular character that is like hinted towards at the very end, and you're just like, oh, like which one, like what happened here? Is this character actually just disappeared into the ether and we've got no idea whatever happens to him, because she had no idea whatever happened to him. There was a couple of characters in here that I wasn't a huge fan of, but you know, that happens with life and everything, so you know, whatever. I did give this 3 stars, so would not recommend as my first Charlotte Bronte, but if you like Charlotte Bronte, you know, give it a shot, see what you think. The next book that I read in the month of June was actually a review copy for The Book of Lies by Terry Terry. I received this from NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. I'm going to talk very quickly about my thoughts on it. So, The Book of Lies by Terry Terry, I ended up giving 3 stars. This is a book about Piper and Quinn. They are twins that have been separated from birth because their grandmother has made a prophecy or something. There's like a family prophecy handed down that with twins there's one evil and one good one. This was pretty predictable to me. Like, I pegged from the beginning what was going on. It does do the unreliable narrator thing, which I quite enjoy, and that did that okay. I have previously read a book by Terry called Mind Games, which I enjoyed a lot more. Yeah, I just found this one a little bit predictable. I enjoyed her writing in Mind Games a lot more. This felt a little bit too simplistic for me. There was one thing in particular that happened in this book that we didn't really unpack and we didn't really have consequences for, that I felt maybe we should have had, particularly because Piper and Quinn weren't raised together, so this should have caused a little bit more conflict than it did. But yeah, if you like books about witches and you like YA and you like unreliable narrators, I would look into this. It is not my favorite of Terry's work, but I'm definitely interested in looking into more of her work, and I enjoy supporting a fellow Australian because Terry is an Australian author. Yeah, so that was my thoughts on the Book of Lies. So I'm gonna skip a book here because this is one of the books that I will talk about at the very end of the video. But know that the first of the books goes here. But the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is The Fever Code by James Dashner. This is book 5, but prequel 2. So, yeah, wrap your head around that. This is the 5th book published in this series, but it is a prequel, and there's another prequel, and I'm not entirely sure how the prequels fit together. I gave this 2 stars. I did finally get the answers that I was looking for. Finally. But the amount of pain and frustration and boredom that I had to endure to get there did not make them worth it. It was not worth it. I regret the choice to read this book. I find Dashner's writing, again, to be very simplistic. There's a lot of opportunity to talk about consequences, and I don't want to use the word unpack again because I've been using that a lot in this video, but again, unpack some stereotypes and some consequences and choices, and like there's a lot of opportunity to really delve into the human psyche in this one, and we didn't do that. We were too focused on nothing. There's not a lot of substance in here. This book is 329 pages, but I feel like it probably could have been 150, 200 pretty easily. There's a lot of just nothing in between these pages, so 2 stars, would not recommend. The next thing that I read in the month of June was part of hashtag Harry Potter Cozy Reading Night, which I participated in. The Cozy Reading Night series is run by Lauren from Lauren and the Books. I will leave a link to her channel down below. Cozy Reading Night is a night that Lauren runs every season / every 2 months at this point, I think. And this one was held on the 20-year anniversary of Harry Potter. So we were reading some Harry Potter stuff. And for this, I finally got around to reading the 3 short story collections for Pottermore Presents. But I got those in like a 3-pack. So I'm just counting it as one book because it was like an omnibus that I got. So I read those. I was making a lot of status updates that I normally wouldn't make because I was trying to participate, which didn't really work because Lauren and everyone else in the booktube community that participates lives in the UK or America, and I'm in Australia, so I was like one of the first people tweeting and like making posts about it. So I didn't really get the interaction that I was hoping to get, but, you know, whatever. I did really enjoy Pottermore Presents. It did clarify a lot of things for me that I was like, where is everyone getting this information about certain things? So that did clarify some things for me. I am just absolutely crushed about some stuff that is revealed in this, particularly in regards to McGonagall and Lupin and just my poor precious little babies. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I found a lot of like the stuff that I didn't know before very informative, but there was a lot of like reiteration of stuff that I did already know and did already like understand, and I was just like, okay, well, this doesn't really represent any new information to me, so why is this in here? There were a couple of sections like that. But that being said, Harry Potter, like I can't. I am just so fucking nerdy for Harry Potter. I can't handle life. I did read this critically. I was very critical about my readings of it. I knew that this wasn't a new Harry Potter story, or it didn't really involve a lot of stuff, so I was very critical in giving it 3 out of 5 stars and not the just general 5 stars that I shove on most Harry Potter things. So yeah, I gave Pottermore Presents 3 stars, and I read that during cozy reading night. And the final thing that I want to talk about before the impending rant was the last book that I read of the month. So there is technically another book that goes before this, but again, I will save that rant for the end of this video if you want to skip it. So the final book that I read this month is Child of Flame by Kate Elliott. This is book 4 in a 7-book series, so I can't really tell you much about this. But this series is a historical fantasy retelling of one of the European like Civil War kind of stuff. Kate Elliott has spoken extensively about which countries correspond with which countries and all of that. So if you're interested in maybe a historical fantasy retelling of a war of some description, of which I have no idea what war that is, I would recommend that you pick this up. This book is over 1,000 pages. And for 1,000 pages, I felt like we didn't get all that much. There was a lot of exposition and info dumping in this particular book. Like, we learn how some of the magical events that have happened long ago happened. This could have been much shorter, and it could have just, like, a lot of this could have just been a prequel short story that Kate Elliott included at the end or in the back, or, you know, as an ebook. But we did learn some very important things about some of the characters and their births and their lineage and stuff. So I did really enjoy those aspects. Again, you probably could have trimmed down a lot of this, but this series is following Leeth and Alan, who are 2 people that will affect the outcome of this war that's going on. So really enjoying this. There are some things in here that are being left deliberately vague. Like, I'm not sure if a thing that I think might have happened has happened, or if I'm just being super suspicious of this one person for no damn reason. But yeah, so we'll see in the next book whether I'm justified in my suspicions. I did only give this 3 stars because I did feel like this could have used some heavy editing. I am still enjoying the series and I am going to continue on with it, but some editing was required for this. Alright guys, so we've reached rant time. So if you are not down for this, you're not down for the salt, you're not down for the shade, and I would walk away. I would walk away now. But the books that I'm going to be ranting slash talking to you guys about is The Wounded Land and The One Tree, both by Stephen R. Donaldson. Where to start? Where to start with this? So this is the second trilogy set in a particular world following the same main character, Thomas Covenant. We're going to start with this. So Thomas Covenant is the main character in this, and he is one of the worst human beings that has ever been created. There is some terrible, terrible people that have been written about, and I think at this point, I would rather meet anyone else than meet Thomas Covenant. So, Thomas Covenant is a writer, and I'm not entirely sure how much Stephen R. Donaldson is using Thomas Covenant as a Gary Sue, but Thomas Covenant is a writer, and he's very, very acclaimed because that's what happens when you're a writer and you write about a writer. You can't write about them not being successful. And then Thomas Covenant has the unfortunate luck to contract leprosy. And leprosy being very stigmatized at the time that this was written, I will be fair to it and say that now these were written in the 70s or 80s. I believe these are set either early or mid 20th century, like a little bit earlier than the 70s or 80s. Leprosy was still very stigmatized at the time that this was set, and therefore Thomas Covenant is ostracized from his community and society, and people are trying to run him out of town, and his wife divorces him and takes their son and leaves him and gives him no contact because leprosy seems to go after small children more or something. And then Thomas is sucked into this world, this fantasy world where, because he is from Earth and because he's wearing a white gold ring, he has to be this one savior that has been there before, and they believe with Thomas Covenant has now returned. And Thomas does some reprehensible things and is not punished for them at all. If you don't want spoilers for this series, I would leave now, because I have reached the point of no fucks given. I've reached the point of no fucks given about this series. So in the first trilogy, Thomas Covenant comes to this land. He thinks it's a delusion. He thinks that this is a dream, it doesn't exist, even though that's not how dreams and delusions and hallucinations and shit work, because you don't ever think that you're in a dream or hallucination, or if you are, you know that you're aware of it. You're not like, some poor justifications. And so Thomas can't cope with the fact that he may be hallucinating or whatever, or actually in a magical realm, because that's so horrible, that he rapes the first female that he meets. He rapes her, gets her pregnant, and through the entire first trilogy and through the entire of these two books, people find out and they don't do anything about it because Thomas has to save this land, this realm. But the focus here is on Thomas's guilt about raping this person and how terrible that is for him. How terrible the fact that he raped someone is for him. Not, oh my god, this poor girl, how dare you? It's, oh no, you must feel terrible. I don't care when this was written. I don't care when it's set. That is inexcusable. Completely inexcusable. And all of this series is just a representation of white cis male privilege. Like, the women in here, they're all dependent on this guy. Like, the woman that he rapes, she has the child and then waits around until her death because she thinks Thomas will come back and love her and marry her and, you know, fix the fact that he raped her by doing these things. The mother of the woman sets aside the fact that this man has raped her daughter to guide him through the land, and she's disgusted with him the whole time, but she doesn't actually be like, I don't care that you're going to save this land. I am not going to lead you. The child who is born of this rape isn't disgusted at the fact that her father raped her mother. She is just so desperate for his affection and his attention that she sets that aside. And as long as he loves her, everything's fine. That's all better. The female main character that we introduce in this book doesn't berate him in any way when he reveals this to her. In fact, they get together. They get together. A man has just admitted that his first journey into this realm, he's raped a woman, and she's like, oh baby, don't worry about it. It's fine. You feel guilty enough. Disgusting. If you had any inclination to read this series, please don't. It's trash. It belongs in the garbage. It belongs set on fire. Every single copy. Every single fucking copy. Yeah, this is lauded as one of those original fantasy series that you have to read. This was recommended to me by not one, but two people. Two people whose tastes that I trust and accept as very valid recommended this series to me. Now, I will say that both of the people that recommended this series to me were male, so, you know, maybe they didn't really think about that, and they both read it a very long time ago, so they may not have remembered this. Aside from the rape and its consequences that don't occur, one of the main issues that I have in the series is that Thomas Covenant is excusing his awful behaviour to all people, not just to the girl that he's raped, but every person that he encounters who he treats badly or demeans or, you know, brutalizes, because, oh poor me, I'm a leper, I've been ostracized from society for the last 10 years, so therefore I have no moral compass. I have been ostracized from society, so I don't know what's right or wrong anymore. And because I've been ostracized, that excuses all of my behaviors because I've had a hard life. I'm sorry, but as someone with chronic mental illness issues for closing on 15 years at this point, because you have a shit life doesn't mean you get to treat other people like shit. That's not how life works. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that your little male privilege has been taken away from you. You're an acclaimed author. I'm sorry that you've lost all of your fans. Oh no, at least you still have a life. And coming off the mental illness stuff, the main female character, who I was again told that I would love, says some horrible, awful things about people with depression and anxiety and people that have committed suicide, etc. Awful, terrible things. Now, I understand that, like the main character, if you have lost someone to suicide, that can be really hard, and grief can express itself in the form of anger. But that, again, is never unpacked. It has never been like, oh, this was just my anger talking, I was very upset, none of that is covered. It's just people that commit suicide are cowards and the scum of the earth, and anyone with a mental illness is basically not a valid human being. If I could erase one series from the entire world, it would be this series. There was a single pure element to this. That is Sea Heart Foam Follower and the rest of the giants who don't belong with this shitty little fuckface who don't deserve the stuff that they are put through because of this shitty little fuckface and his entitlement. And yeah, there is some giant sacrifices that they make that I'm not okay with. I am absolutely gonna finish this series. I'm reading it at this point as a hate read. I hate it so much. At this point, I half hope that all of the characters but the giants die, because none of them deserve this magical land that they have been given. I would not recommend this at all to no one ever. This will be very damaging to a lot of people to read. Don't do it. Just don't do it to yourselves. Don't do it. Garbage. I am so excited to be able to get rid of these very, very soon. It won't be till the end of the year because I collect all of the books that I read in a year and make a Christmas tree out of them, so I have to keep them until at least the end of the year. But once that year ends, these are gone, and I am so excited to get rid of them. Alright guys, that was my rant and my shade. I hope it didn't upset or hurt you too much to hear about some of these issues that I have with this series. But yeah, that was my thoughts on all of the books that I read in the month of June. If you have any comments, please feel free to share. I would love to know what you think about any of the books that are included in this wrap-up. I'm gonna go have some tea and some chocolate and just not think about Thomas Covenant right now. So that's everything from me for this video. I hope you have a magical day. Bye.